Hi there. Hey everybody. How y'all doing tonight? Well, this evening, I should say. Hey everyone. Guys, drop in the comments where you are located. I would like to see where you guys are. So tonight we're going to be talking about life plans and why I believe every individual, whether or not you're a child or an adult, needs an individualized life plan. So we're going to talk about some really deep stuff, and I hope that you guys will give me some engagement. And hey, Atlanta, Cali, Texas, some of my favorite places. All right. Florida, that's home for me. All right. So I am glad that you guys are here. I am trying to get connected over here as well. Well, it looks like that is not going to work, so it's going to be us, guys. So today I was trying to also get on Facebook Live, but I am having some technical difficulties, and that's okay. But I want to talk to you guys a little bit about life planning tonight. I am assuming that you're on here because you have a child or a loved one with either autism, disability, or some sort of neurodiversity. And lately I've been having a lot of people talk to me a little bit about their overwhelm as a parent, not knowing what to do. And I really feel like our emotions are kind of hindering us from getting not only where we need to get our kids to be, but also where we need to be. And so I kind of look at this journey like we do driving, right? So if you have someplace that you want to go and you've never been there before, unlike way back in the day, you don't take out a map, you get your GPS out, you open up your phone, whether or not it's Google Maps or MapQuest or whatever it is that you use, and you put that address into that GPS to figure out where you're going, right? And knowing that you have that GPS that's going to direct you to your destination gives you a sense of comfort, a sense of confidence, a sense of understanding, like, okay, I don't have to worry about where I'm going because this GPS is going to take me exactly where I need to go. But when we have a child with autism, intellectual disability, even ADHD, and we don't know exactly where we're headed, it creates all kind of anxiety and stress for us. Anybody feel like that? At least I know that's the way I feel sometimes, right? You don't know where you're headed, so when you don't know where you're headed, it just creates quite a bit of stress. And drop a emoji in the comments for me if you understand where I'm going with this in terms of feeling like you don't know which direction you're headed when you have your child, that you've gotten that diagnosis and you're living that day to day, but you don't know exactly, what to do from day to day. Now, obviously you love your child, you're going to do the best you can, but you don't necessarily know. I'm at you. It is going good tonight. It is going good. We are talking about life planning. We're talking about life planning. So I'm glad that you guys are here and you've joined us. And so what I want you guys to know is that a life plan essentially gives you that guide. It gives you that guide to help you steer your child in the direction in which you want to go, right? And once you know where it is that you want to go, the direct direction that you want to go in, it makes things a lot easier. It takes the weight off of your shoulder. It takes the stress off of you. It takes that anxiety off of you because you have a plan. Big man's doing all right. He is doing okay. He's doing all right tonight. Thank you for asking. And so when you have that roadmap, essentially, it makes life easier because it takes a lot of the emotions out of it. And as you know, when you have that emotional piece of it, Sometimes we let our emotions drive us because we love our kids and we get so overwhelmed with everything that's happening with them. We kind of take the logic out of a lot of things. And so tonight, I want to help you guys kind of make things make sense for your child's future. And one of the things that we look at is basically designing a life plan. And a lot of you may or may not have ever heard of a life plan before. I know I didn't when I got a diagnosis for Quincy, and it's really something that I stumbled upon. And I really didn't have anyone to guide me along the way, which is why I decided to, kind of build out my own strategy, build out my own plan. And essentially, I was able to provide that plan for myself, tweak it over the years, and make it work for my son, and now make it work for others. Yes, there should be a balance between logic and emotions, but however, we're emotional beings as is. We're designed with emotions, right? But oftentimes, our emotions take a back seat to our logic, and that's when the problems kind of set in. If we let our logic take the front seat, or I should say the driver's seat instead of the passenger seat, we'll find out that, we'll put ourselves in a better position. But thank you, Matthew. Yes. So there are 5 components that I believe that everyone should have in a life plan. And I'm going to go over those. And if you see me looking down, I'm looking at my notes here. And that's because in my years, I tend to forget things or I go off on a rant. And we have a little bit amount of time. So I want to make sure I cover everything that I wanted to cover. How long did it take me to develop this plan? 4 years. 4 years. And it only took me 4 years because I was the one that decided that I needed it and didn't have anyone to guide me along the way. Should it take you 4 years? Absolutely not. It should not take you 4 years. Now, it should take you about 3 to 4 months to build it out properly, though. Yeah. All right. So the very first piece is what I call the core. And the core is your loved one. That's your child that has the disability, that has autism, that is neurodiverse. And that core, it really represents anything that from the physical, things like medication management, things like personal hygiene, personal safety, health, anything like that. That's what the core is, okay? The second piece is education. And that is education from a standpoint of if your child is school age, that K through 12 or really pre-K through 12 education, and then that post-secondary education. And for the post-secondary education, it does not have to be traditional at all. That can be an apprenticeship. Thank you very much. I appreciate that compliment. But that can be an apprenticeship. That can be pretty much any type of training. Even if it's training that you just had someone that train your child, because a traditional setting doesn't work. But that's definitely a component that you want in your life plan. The third piece of it is what I call daily life. Okay, and that daily life, that's anything that's a part of what we go through on a day-to-day basis. So those are your independent living skills, things like managing your household, your finances, having different housing options, figuring out how you're going to navigate yourself to different geographic locations in your community. So that's all a part of that daily life. And then the next piece of it is that work component. And that work component, obviously, we all want to have purpose and meaning in our lives. And for many of us, our jobs are a way to have purpose. And for people with disabilities, and I don't care how far you are on the spectrum or if you have an intellectual disability, everybody wants meaning and purpose as a part of their life. And so even if a child cannot have full-time or even part-time employment, you got to remember that even volunteering is a part of that work component. And so far we have the core, which is the individual, our loved ones. We have education piece. That's the second component. We have daily living. That's that entire home life thing we have, including our finances and housing options. Then we have work. And the last one is the community dimension. And the community dimension is that piece where we all want to belong to something. We all want to be a part of something. And so we want to find our tribe, essentially, right? We want to have a group of people, or at least a few people in our life that we can connect with. We want to have people that we can do things with. We want to have people to be able to have dialogue with. And that's something that we all want, and our kids and our young adults with disabilities, they want the same thing as well. And so in addition to that, having your tribe, that community piece is also finding those places that you enjoy, right? So nobody wants to stay in the house all day long, neither do our kids, right? And so even as adults, when they're relying on you, or if they're relying on you for transportation and things like that, they have to be able to identify different places and different recreation and leisure that they would like to get into as a part of their life. So those are the five main components. Like I said before, most of you have probably never heard of an individualized life plan, and you probably know about an individualized education plan because those are in the school system. And as a part of the IEP in the school system, there is a piece, it's called a transition plan, that kids, when they turn at least 14, but I believe by law they have to have one no later than 16. But most states and school districts, by the time they're 14, they have to create a transition plan. And that transition plan, I feel like that is a component of the life plan, but it's almost always underdeveloped in the school system. So I can guarantee you, if you took 10 IEPs of 10 seniors in high school, those transition plans are going to look almost like duplicates. Unfortunately, educators often have a pool of goals and things that they have that they believe that kids should do, and they choose from those things and they put it in the IEP, and parents are just like, okay. But you got to remember that as a part of the transition plan, you should be developing goals for your child that are meaningful. So when you're going to that IEP table, you are having that conversation about, okay, what is it that I need for my child to learn how to do, or for my child to obtain prior to leaving high school? And now, if your child is not in high school and your child is in elementary school or even middle school, you're probably not going to be thinking that far out, okay, well, what's going to happen after high school when they're just in 6th grade? But the reality is, you should be thinking about those things now, because you don't wait until they are juniors or seniors to start teaching them those skills for independence. And that ultimately is the primary point of the life plan, is to ensure that your child can be independent in the future, right? Because at the end of the day, regardless of where our child sits on the spectrum, there are opportunities for them to be as independent as possible. And the only way that they're going to get to be as independent as possible is if we start as early as possible. And I know that one of the things that we often do, especially as moms, we often do everything for our kids, whether or not it's out of love, whether or not it's out of, okay, it's going to take them too long to get this done. I don't feel like being frustrated right now. I'm tired. I just came home from work. But we have to realize that if we don't set them up now and start giving them those small steps towards independence, we're going to struggle with them gaining independence later on. Because if you think about it, especially if your child has learning difficulties and they struggle with social emotional things, if they struggle with academics, it takes them a little bit longer to learn a skill. So you can't expect them to now, at 14 years old, start teaching them to be independent when you would teach a neurotypical 14-year-old certain skills to prepare them for life after high school. So you've got to start earlier. No matter what it is, you have to start earlier. And some people will say, well, my child wouldn't be ready for those things. Well, I don't know if that's the case. They may not be ready for that exact skill, but they're certainly ready to start doing things on their own. Because the one piece of independence that we often kind of neglect or we don't recognize is that really gaining independence is about resilience, right? It's about trying and failing, and trying again and again. And so those are the things that we have to get our kids accustomed to. We often want to hide the pain from them. We don't want them to fail at anything because failure never feels good. I know that it doesn't. But what failure does is it teaches them resilience, okay? So when they are falling down and they have to brush those knees off, and they've got to pick themselves up again, and you're there as their biggest cheerleader, that's exactly what you want, because those are the things that's going to help them towards independence. And for those of you guys that have kids that are on the mid to lower end of the spectrum that has difficulty with, personal hygiene skills, I want to remind you, I want you to know that there's research that says that the number one indicator of independence is personal hygiene. Can your child take a bath? Can they use the bathroom by themselves? Can they get dressed by themselves? Those types of things. So you want to make sure that you don't allow your child to, ignore those things and you do everything for them, but you support them in getting those things done. And one of the ways that you can do that, if you're challenged with doing that, is by doing a task analysis and breaking down whatever that skill is that you want them to learn into several steps, and then teaching those steps one by one. So we just went over the 5 pillars for independence, and it's a part of that life plan. And I'm going to say it again. It's yourself, it's education, it's daily life, it's work, and it's community. And so tonight I want to talk about us as parents, right? Something that we often don't really talk about is how we feel about our child having a disability. And I can say this, and I don't know how many people are honest with themselves or honest with other people, but at the end of the day, when we were in the process of having this baby and we were delivering this baby in our minds, some of us, we expected our children to come out perfectly, and I'm using that in air quotes, right? And so when we had our babies and we realized that, there was something different about our child was not making the progress that our other children were, or what they were expected to make, that kind of plays with our psyche a little bit, okay? And so when things play with our psyche, it also impacts our emotions. And so many of us are still dealing with the grief from our kids' diagnosis. Some of us have never even dealt with the grief from our kids' diagnosis. Now, I know some people will say, well, I'm not grieving. And maybe you're not. But I know for many of us, we are grieving, and it's a process, right? One day we're like, okay, we're good. And other days we're like, okay, this is too much for me. I wish things were different. I didn't want things to be like that. And those are things that happen, and those are things that are said, and those are things that you think when you are still in the grieving process. So keep in mind that it is okay. It is absolutely okay to have those thoughts, to have those feelings, to wish that things were different. It's one of those things where you kind of feel guilty about feeling that way because you feel like you shouldn't feel that way. But I want you to know that it is absolutely okay. It is normal to feel that way. And if anybody tells you otherwise, they haven't lived your life, and tell them to kick rocks. And so I want to make sure that those of you guys that are dealing with some of your emotions, that you are tapping into those feelings and you are addressing them. Many of us, we ignore our own emotions because we have so much going on with our kids. We got to take care of our babies, and we put ourselves in a secondary spot. But, and this might sound weird to many of you, we can't put ourselves in a secondary spot. We have to put ourselves in the primary spot, because if we don't put ourselves in the primary spot, we are now unavailable to give our kids exactly what it is that they need to thrive, what it is for them to be a fully independent adult. And we can't even think past our own, what we have going on in here and in here, in order to develop the right steps to take for them. So many of us, we have our kids in all kinds of therapy, which is wonderful. Some of us don't do any therapy at all, and we rely completely on the school, and that's a mistake. Do not rely completely on the school. I don't care what they tell you. Do not rely completely on the school. And some of you guys have your kids going to therapy 5 times a week. You've got occupational therapy, you've got speech therapy, you've got HIPAA therapy, you've got aquatic therapy. You have every therapy there is, and your child is getting 140% of you, and there's nothing left for you. And that's not okay either. You've got to find a balance to make sure that you are mentally and emotionally in a place where you can serve your child to the best of your ability. Because if you don't, your child is not going to get your absolute best, and your child is going to be in a position where they should have gotten things from you that they did not. I also want to remind you guys that Rome was not built in a day. Rome was not built in a day. And this is especially for my families that have kids with language delays. You guys know that autism is a social communication disability. That is what it's about, social communication. And some of us, you layer it on with having an intellectual disability, and that makes things, even more intense. But you've got to remember that when you are dealing with a language-based disability, yes, the professionals need to be there to support you. You need the therapy. You need speech therapy in school. You probably need that speech therapy, private speech therapy as well. And I highly, highly, highly recommend that. But you also need to incorporate those things as a part of your daily routine. Because if you're taking your child to speech therapy 2-3 times a week for 30 minutes, 45 minutes each session, and then you come home and that's it, your child is not going to see the growth that he or she should. Many of us don't know what to do, and I don't know what is happening, but I'm hearing a lot of families, a lot of my clients are telling me okay, they take their child to speech therapy or occupational therapy, and they go in the back with the clinician, and they come back out, and they're like, okay, see you on Tuesday. Well, that should not be the end of discussion. You should be having a 2-3 minute conversation with that clinician about what it is your child worked on and what you should be doing at home. And if your clinician is not doing that, you got to ask them for it. Because if you're not piggybacking off of what they're doing every single day, you're not going to see the growth that you want to see. I promise you that. You're not going to see it. And I don't care how much your child is growing, they are going to grow tenfold once you start doing exactly what the clinicians are doing. Now, keep in mind, you're not doing it the way the clinicians are doing it, right? They have a certain level of expertise, but don't discount yourself, because you are also able to provide some of that support to your child. And you can ask them, what should I do? How can I incorporate this into my daily life? Because no, you're not going to sit with them, for hours on end, 4, 5, 6 hours on the weekend and show them pictures of things. No, you're not. But guess what? You can have those visuals within your home. You can put them in your kitchen. You can put them in your bathroom. And I'll tell you guys, a funny story. When Quincy was getting his job, and if some of you guys follow me already, you know that I'm his job coach. And if you need tips on how to double as your child's job coach, let me know. But one of the things that I told the human resources manager that he needs a visual. Now, obviously, he's 20-something years old. He didn't need a picture schedule, but he definitely needed a checklist, because once he knows what is expected of him, he can fly all day long. And so as I'm telling her, okay, he really needs a checklist, he whispers to me, Mom, I'm not a baby. Well, no, you're not a baby. And so he equates that checklist to being a baby. But those of you guys that have a lot to do, you guys know that having a checklist is huge. Having a to-do list of things that you have to do is huge, even as an adult. So make sure that you incorporate those things. And if you don't know how to do it on your own, you ask the clinician, how can I incorporate these things in my day-to-day with my child, whatever it is that they're working on. It doesn't matter if they're working on articulation. It doesn't matter if they are working on, expressive language, receptive language, social pragmatics, social communication. Like, those are all things that you can work on at home with your kids. I know that parents rarely hear from the therapist, occupational therapist, speech pathologist at the schools, but you can also do the same thing with them. And it's also great when you have alignment between your private services and what you're receiving in the school. Okay? So again, guys, that life plan, that if you have not developed one for your child yet, you definitely need to. I don't know how many of you guys are on when I first started, but there are 5 components to a life plan. There's your child, that's the core. There is education, there is daily life, there's work, and there is community. And those are the 5 pieces, those are the 5 pillars that you want to make sure that you are planning for your child, and you are planning that as early as possible. Some people have said to me, well, at what age should I start planning? And my answer to that is always now. And whatever that age is, I don't care if your child is 5, I don't care if your child is 15, and I really don't care if your child is 25. But if they're not in a place where they are as independent as they can possibly be, you have got to develop a life plan. And the last thing that I want to say about this before I open up the floor for questions, that life plan is as much for you as it is for your child. And the reason why is, if you don't teach your child to be as independent as possible now, what do you think is going to happen on the back end when they're 20, 25, 30, 40, 50, right? Because your child has what? At least 70 years to live. So you've got to think about it in the long goal. You got to play the long game on this. It's not just today. And yes, your child is whatever age he or she is right now. But if you're not thinking about that and keeping that in the forefront of your mind, okay, when I get ready to bend down and tie his shoes, when I know he knows how to tie his shoes, you're not helping them with independence. You're not helping them to get where they need to be. So make sure that you are leading with your logic first and your emotions second. All right, anybody have any questions for me? Any questions for me about life planning? Okay, let's see. Your son is 20 and you started late to prepare him for adulthood. I hear you. But guess what? Better late than never. Better late than never. Kudos to you for getting it done now. Your daughter's in the 7th grade, Lisa, and she just turned 13. You're having an R. Do you want to ask for a life plan? Okay, so here's the thing about that. A life plan is not something you ask for from the school. That is something that you develop as a family, okay? They'll give you some transition planning stuff for your kids. I believe in Texas, because I think are you in Texas, Lisa? You're talking about an ARD, so I think you're in Texas. I normally hear people from Texas talk about an ARD. But in Texas, they do some planning for you, but they do it again in the traditional sense of the school. They often don't think outside of the box in terms of what your child's life looks like after school. They do it within the realm of planning for your child's education within that K-12 setting. Okay. So if you want to learn about how to develop a life plan, I'm actually having a master class next week. You can go to the link in my bio and you'll see a link there. But it is something that you should be developing as a family. The school can't develop your life plan for you for your child. Okay. And the reason being is that the life plan has to work for your family, not just your child, for your family, because there's no need in putting together a plan that does not work for your family, because folks from the school are not going to come and implement it for you, right? All right. Definitely not the life I wanted for my son. Yes, absolutely. Right. We got to embrace it. And you know what? I was telling somebody else, I think in one of my posts, they made the comment about, certain things that they love and hate. And I definitely piggyback off of that, because there's certain things you love. There's certain things you hate about autism or your child's disability. But at the end of the day, you got to embrace it all, right? You got to embrace it all, because once you embrace it all, you're going to be able to roll with it and go a whole lot further than fighting back and, not wanting to deal with things that you normally would not have dealt with simply because you refuse to embrace it. So thank you for that comment. That was really good. Thank you. Grieving at different stages of our lives. Yeah, Red Rose, that is a good one. And I tell you what, too, the grieving is crazy, because it's almost like once you get them past one phase and you're like, yes, they can do it, and they can go to the bathroom and they have some language and they can feed themselves. Now you get to the next stage. Now you get to like middle school, And this has a whole nother set of issues. So you're right. It's almost like you start grieving over and over and over again. But the good thing about it, what is amazing about that, is that you've already grieved for things before. So you know how to kind of snap yourself out of it and remind yourself, okay, wait a minute. I know this too shall pass. I know this is going to pass, so I don't have to worry about it. Thank you, Red Rose. All right. Okay, you put yourself last. Mommy Bear, yeah, Mommy Bear. We cannot be last, baby. We cannot be last. We have to be first. Because if we're not first, we're not going to be any good for anybody else. Thank you. How do you suggest we balance our self-care and the care of our kids? It's hard when they require so much. Yes, it is. So that balance is kind of tricky, right? And so one of the things that I always do is ask people to tap into their support. And I'm talking to myself when I say this as well, because trust me when I tell you, there are things that I still struggle with. There are things that I still have to remind myself of and kick my own self in the butt and like, okay, Danette, this is not what we're going to do. So with the self-care, you have got to get people on board. If you're like me, you don't even want to ask for help, right? You don't want people to come up with excuses. You don't even want to hear it. So you don't even bother asking for help. You're just like, you know what, my kid, I'm going to do it. But one thing you really need to do is see who you can count on. I don't care if you can only count on that person for one time a year, but you need to get your tribe together to see who can provide you with support so you can get that balance. One of the other things that you can do is schedule your time appropriately. Y'all, even though Quincy was the only one that had autism, and I had several children, I have 3 sons, I didn't care. Everybody was going to bed at 8 o'clock. I don't care if you're 13, you're still going to bed at 8 o'clock. You know why? Because I need my sanity. So I need you all to take a bath and go to bed so that I can have my downtime. And so, yeah, that meant they got up really early, but that was fine because that allowed me to balance some things for myself. But you're basically creating that time for yourself, because if you don't create that time and space for yourself, you'll never have it. Whether or not that's first thing in the morning, whether or not that's late at night, you have to have that time for yourself. Taking walks, okay? It doesn't have to be anything huge. A lot of us, we don't even go outside and enjoy the sun, right? And the sun is good for us. I don't know about you, but if you go outside and stand out in the sun for a good 2-3 minutes, all of a sudden you just start to feel good. So you've got to find those small things, especially when your kids require a lot of attention. I know some of you guys have kids with, on top of the disability and on top of the social communication, they have intellectual delays. They also have medical issues. So I definitely understand that it's often hard to get that time, but you've got to look at your 24 hours and figure out where can you take it. I don't care if it's 30 minutes every day, you take those 30 minutes. Making sure that the other adults in your household that are there, that they do their part. Especially if you have a spouse, they don't get to tap out and say, okay, well, I'm not dealing with this. No, they have to be a part of the process as well so that you can get self-care. And they can give you an hour a week or whatever it is you need so that you can balance yourself out. Hey, Miss Brantley. All right, my son's therapist, I'll make sure that they give me homework after the session, and when they see him again, they can tell if we followed up. Oh, I love that therapist. I love that kind of a therapist. Quincy used to have a therapist. Her name was Hedia. I swear she was the best therapist ever that he had. When I moved from Florida, I was sad because I never found another one like her. But if I didn't do the homework, she knew that I didn't do the homework. And guess what? She asked me every session. And that's how I became so adamant about doing the homework and incorporating into our daily lives, because someone was holding me accountable and was, holding my feet to the fire. Okay, so you all didn't do the homework, I can tell. How embarrassing is that, right? No. So guess what I did? I did that homework. Yes. All right. All right. My kiddos are 6, 7, and 9. They're all very independent. What do you suggest when you say to plan for their career? Okay, so Winterman Sarah, you say very independent. That's kind of subjective and hard for me to answer that question. But planning for their career is really about making sure that you're tapping into their interests. So if you know that, let's say that, and I'll give you a prime example. I knew that patterns were great for Quincy, and he picked up on patterns very well. So when he was 7 years old, we bought this, I want to say it was something circuits, but it was this thing where it had like 100 different projects. It was a book, and it came with a circuit board and different pieces to it, but you could create different projects. So you put the circuits together, you put the pieces together, and it would make a light bulb light up, or it would make a fan turn. It would do different things that was a part of electricity. So what you're doing is you're basically fostering their strengths, okay? Obviously, you've got to work on their weaknesses, but making sure that wherever it is that you identify as, oh my goodness, he's really good at that, or she's really good at that, that you start pouring into that for them for the future. I hope that helps, but if you want a little bit more, click the link in my bio and schedule a consultation with me if you want to go deeper. Yeah. Lisa Luna, my masterclass, the link is in my bio. It's next Tuesday, April 22nd at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It will be via Zoom. It's hard to ask when we are the ones that are used to doing everything. Yes, I'll definitely take my suggestions. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mommy Bear. Yeah, absolutely. You got your late night 10 p.m. time. Good for you. Melissa, y'all, my good friend Melissa Mora is on with us. She is a BCBA. She's in California. Her website is bxconsultations.com. If you guys are looking for a BCBA and you are in California, hit her up. She is amazing. She is amazing. Again, that's BX, B as in boy, X as in X-ray, consultations.com if you're looking for a BCBA. All right. Okay. What else do we have? My son has always loved cars and trucks. I'm so thrilled to see him start truck driving school. Kudos. Yes, yes. All right. I agree. It's super important to tap into their passions. Yes. Good for you. Good for you, Red Rose. Good for him. All right. All right, guys. Does anybody have any more questions before we end this session? I'm so glad you guys came out to join me. If you have not developed a life plan for your child, please join my masterclass next week, Tuesday, April 22nd, 7:30 p.m. The link is in my bio. T.M. Brantley, did Quincy have echolalia? Absolutely, yes, yes, yes. And yes, he has grown out of it. Quincy did not speak until he was about 4-ish. And when he did speak, only language he had was echolalia. He did not develop his own language until he was about 9 years old. Okay? And so, yes, he no longer speaks with echolalia. But if you've seen him on the videos, you'll notice that sometimes when he's speaking, he'll kind of pause and almost like stutter. I think that is like, remnants of the echolalia still there. But yes, and I don't know if I would say he grew out of it more so than speech and language therapy helped to develop his language. And so I'm very big on not waiting for our kids to grow out of things, but us being very proactive and making sure that they're getting the tools and the strategies, and we're also using those tools and strategies at home to support them with that. And I'll give you one tip. If your child has echolalia, What I did, and I don't know if you saw, I had a freebie in my bio of things that I did to support my son when he was nonverbal. But if your child has echolalia and you want to help foster that language, especially if you're not getting homework from your SLPs, when they repeat you and you ask them a question, they repeat you, go ahead and give them the answer so they can repeat the answer, okay? I promise you that they are doing more than just repeating you, okay? It's something that is very difficult to understand, at least it was for my brain. Like, okay, why does he just keep repeating everything that I say, right? But it's because he's trying to communicate and he doesn't have his own language to communicate that yet. But make sure when you ask that question and he repeats it back to you, go ahead and give him that answer so he can repeat that answer back to you as well. Yeah. Yes, I am going to save this live. It will be on my feed. Yes. All right. How do you plan for your child after you die? Well, guess what? Oh, that's a good one. Let's talk about that real quick. I know I said I was getting off, but I do want to address this. So there are a couple of things that you have to do. But one of the ways that you plan for your child after you die is making sure that your child is as independent as possible while you're still alive. Okay? Now, with that being said, obviously, you want to get, if you have these types of assets, you want to get a special needs trust. You want to start planning financially for your child. I had someone tell me recently who their young adult is 19 years old and they never applied for Social Security for him, and he can't even live on his own, right? He can't do a whole lot on his own. And I said to them, well, why didn't you apply for Social Security? Well, I don't need any help. Well, that's all good and fine that you don't need any help. We know you can take care of your child, but at the end of the day, that is, and it's not a whole lot of money, but that's $943 a month that you can be getting and putting into an ABLE account and putting that into an investment account in that ABLE account for your child. If you guys have never heard of an ABLE account before, if you do have an adult that's receiving SSI and you worry about, okay, oh, he can't have more than $2,000 in his account, don't worry about that. Get an ABLE account. You can take that excess money and put it into the ABLE account, and they can have all the way up to $100,000 in that ABLE account, and it will not mess with their cash benefits from SSI or anything else that they get. Up to $100,000. Now, once you go over $100,000, then you'll lose those cash benefits, but he'll still be able, or she will still be able to keep their Medicaid up to $300,000. Once you hit past $300,000, then it's all going to go away, right? They're not going to allow you to have benefits if you have $300,000 in the bank. But I feel like that's a pretty good number to allow someone to have up to $100,000, and you still keep your benefits. You just lose your cash benefits up to $300,000. So the medical pieces of it are still intact. So you want to make sure you start by financially saving. You want to make sure that you have either a special needs trust, because you want to make sure that there's someone, if your child doesn't have the capacity to make decisions for themselves, that there's someone to do that for them. You want to determine whether or not they are going to be able to live on their own and not need any support at all, whether or not it's supported decision making. And supported decision making, it is a legal process in some states, and it's an informal process in other states. But supported decision making simply means that your child has agreed, as an adult, has agreed to allow a certain group of people to help support him in decisions. So if you have a child that's fairly compliant, supported decision making is pretty good, because they're going to come to you when things come up. Quincy is one of those kids that, well, you know what? If something comes up, he's going to ask me about it. I don't have to worry about, okay, is he going to sign a contract without me? He's not going to sign anything without me, because I put that in his head. You don't sign anything without me or one of your brothers knowing. So supported decision making is good, but I had a potential client contact me about a month ago, and she has a daughter that is 19 years old who every time she gets her Social Security check, she spends it on weave. I mean, hey, everybody wants their hair to look good, but you can't buy $900 worth of weave, for 22-inch straight hair. You can't do that. So you want to make sure that your child, if they are in a place where they can understand some basic things, that they are willing to allow someone to help them. If they are not willing to allow someone to help them, you probably don't want to do supported decision making. You may want to look more into guardianship. And if you're looking at guardianship for someone else to make decisions for your child after they turn 18, now mind you, they can't be competent enough to make their decisions and you take guardianship, okay? You're going to have to prove to the judge, because it is a court proceeding where you have to prove to the judge that your child does not have the ability to make their own decisions. And the thing that I want to mention about guardianship is, if you think your child ever wants to get married, wants to vote, those types of things, you want to really look into guardianship closely, because guardianship often takes away your child's rights. Okay, so you have to be careful with that, and it's different from state to state. Some states are all or nothing. Either they lose all of their rights, and some states allow you to kind of like cherry pick which rights that your child gets to keep. Okay, so guardianship is another one. Guardianship can be very expensive. So by the time your child is 16, you should kind of know which direction you're going to want to go or need to go with your child. But if guardianship is too restrictive and your child can make certain decisions on their own, then you may want to look at power of attorney or the supported decision making. The power of attorney allows you to step in, and I have that with Q as well, allows you to step in whenever you need to, and you don't have to worry about, in the moment there being a crisis and now you have to try to get permission. It's already done, documents already signed and notarized, and all you have to do is show people that you have this power of attorney. So I hope that helps, Ashley. I hope that helps, okay? What do I think about Gestalt? Okay, so I'm not an expert on Gestalt, but what I do know is Quincy is a Gestalt learner. I know that a lot of kids that have echolalia are also Gestalt learners. From what I understand, Gestalt learners are those that kind of learn things in, their minds are kind of like in pictures, and they learn things in phrases. Quincy was one of those that, like I mentioned to TM before, echolalia was huge for him. He could recite lines from every movie and commercial that he saw. And what was amazing and crazy, and if you guys have a child that uses echolalia for speech, start listening closely. You're going to see that they are going to insert those lines from these cartoons and from these TV shows into real life, and it's going to be applicable. It's going to be applicable. I promise you, it's going to be applicable. So don't count them out. Just because they don't have their own language doesn't mean anything. But yeah, lots of Gestalt learners, they end up developing great language. That speech therapy is amazing when it's done right and it's done consistently. Okay. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you. All right. Yeah, apply for SSI if your child is an adult. And if your child is not an adult, obviously it's based off of your income. But the minute your child turns 18, it is now based on their income, and they are considered an adult. So yeah. You gave up on it? I would tell you to keep trying. A lot of people go with an attorney who does it where they get paid after they get the money. So you might want to consider one of those attorneys where you don't pay anything up front. They'll look at your file and tell you whether or not they believe that your child will get approved. And they take like a third of it once they get it approved. But hey, giving up a third to get 2/3, that's pretty good as far as I'm concerned, especially if you've been denied. Yes, you can be your child's proxy. Yep. All right. You're welcome, Red Rose. You're welcome. All right. So last call for questions, y'all. Last call. I'm so glad that you guys came on with me this evening. Thank you for being here. Again, if you have not developed a life plan and you want to learn a little bit more about how to get started, join me on my masterclass next Tuesday, April 22nd at 7:30 Eastern Standard Time, and that link is in my bio. Okay, Red Rose. Okay, is your child a minor, Red Rose? If they're under 18, that would be correct. If they are over 18, that should not be so, okay? But if they are younger than 18, it would be based off of you. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you guys for joining me tonight. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your evening. Have a good night. He's 20. Is he still in school, Red Rose? If he's still in school, that might be a caveat if he's still in school. But if he's out of school, that's a no. You should be applying under him. Okay? All right. Have a good night, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Bolivar.